comic books made more sense. You know it is fictitious without pretense.
Hello, with all the hoopla about the Creature Commandos having their own cartoon series and all of a sudden everyone in the universe knowing who they are, I decided to do something with Weird War Tales featuring the Creature Commandos. Creature Commandos made their first appearance in a comic called Weird War Tales, which was a fun 70s horror comic with a war theme, like a military theme. These were great comics. Mostly they were sort of in the vein of a Twilight Zone type of thing where, someone does something wrong and then like creatures attack them, or usually a military unit of some sort. Doesn't have to be American, could be like any other country or any other time, like other conflicts in history. They'd encounter some sort of strange creature or supernatural or something like that. It was a fun series. And I know they bring it back every so often, but it doesn't have the old sensibilities of just being good horror yarns, right? The Creature Commandos made their appearance, I think, in issue 93, not long before this one. So this is issue 97. I think this is the second appearance of the Creature Commandos. Here you've got a Frankenstein monster beating up these Germans from World War II. I'm not going to mention the name because this is YouTube. And just an explanation about what the Creature Commandos are. So they're basically a U.S. military unit that served in World War II, at least in these stories. I know there's other iterations, but they're made up of stand-ins for Universal monsters, basically. Because at the time this was made, around the 70s, the brand of monsters that was prominent in the public eye were mostly Universal monsters. So like a vampire, a werewolf, a Frankenstein's monster, etc., etc., right? These characters are not the Universal monsters, but they're kind of stand-ins for it. Like this is Elliot Lucky Taylor. So he stepped on a landmine or something, and then they patched him together as part of this project, and then made him a Frankenstein monster. And he looks like the Universal Jack Pierce Frankenstein monster, basically. So let's get into it. Approved by the Comics Code, so it can't be that gory, can it? There's a lot of death and stuff in this. It is war, and it is horror, so they're back with a vengeance. The Creature Commandos. 50 cents. Cool. Here's you see a lot of these monogram things. This is from 1981. You see a lot of these monogram model kits back then. Like there's a lot of these they made a set of monsters as well. I remember that commercial, but they made a lot of these like vehicles and things like this. Here Death is hosting. In the first few issues of Weird War Tales, I seem to recall every time it was a new monster, so it wasn't really iconic because there's a new strange monster. There's some sort of like sea creature that comes up and tells tales, and there's like a dude that in a cloak that told tales, etc., etc. And he used to have some sort of wraparound thing where a soldier would encounter the host, and then the host would tell the tales, and then that guy would have something happen to him. They got rid of that a while ago. That's in the first few. This is into the 90s. So, once you hit those issue numbers, you try to streamline things a bit. So Death is going to tell this tale about the Creature Commandos. And here they are. So that's Elliot Lucky Taylor. This is a normal dude who's just accompanying them. He's leading the mission. And this is Warren Griffith. He naturally had lycanthropy, I think. Usually all these people are experimented on to create this team. But I think he just was naturally a werewolf. And you'll see Vincent Velcro here. So he is a vampire. Now they don't call him that usually. I think he was experimented on. He becomes he can change into a bat and do all this stuff. He has a cool like cane and all that. They're all bickering and stuff. They're uneasy, reporting into a human But I mean, they are, military. I think Vincent is a sergeant. Lucky Taylor, he doesn't really talk, but he's a private. I don't think that Warren had, or maybe he did, but I don't think Warren had any sort of designation or anything or rank. So, of course, the Frankenstein monster is super strong. He's uprooting a tree here. They have to go retrieve a woman, like a scientist from the Germans, right? So they go and they attack this whole caravan, and it's a bloodbath. It's like they go and there's this shadowed thing with the werewolf destroying guys, and here comes the vampire, and he's killing dudes, and here comes the Frankenstein monster. He throws guys. They're all dead. I mean, here's a Warren Griffith again. He takes this dude. So this is what they could get away with. It all works. As a kid, you read this and you're like, you fill in the blanks in your mind. That's half the fun. And of course, kids are way more sadistic than than the authors of this material. So here's a huge ad for sea monkeys. I think nowadays, with the internet and stuff, this is a fascination that anyone even sent in for these things back in the day. Of course, they didn't look anything like this. They're like tiny little shrimpy things. Literally shrimps, right? And here's one of these trashy... So this is what comic ads looked like in the early 80s and through the 70s as well. It just looks like newspaper want ads or something. But yeah, comic books for sale. I'm sure back then they were nothing. Nowadays, each one of these would be like $50, like minimum. Full color TV cartoons. Oh, cool, from original cells with backgrounds. You don't know which ones of these are scams, right? Of course, the ever-present Atlas, the Atlas fit. So here they are. They're rescuing the woman, and then they're going to whatever rendezvous point they have to go through, and she's talking about how, like, the enemy is still people, etc. And the human guy is like, he doesn't care about all that stuff. You're exasperating, Doctor. The monsters are sympathetic. And it's one of those tropes where it's like, who's the real monster? And of course, it's the humans, right? So wolves attack, and then Warren Griffith fights the wolves. They're pretty decimated here. It's pretty brutal. Like their ribs are exposed, etc. That's nasty. But anyways, that's what he did. Approved by the Comics Code, guys. So, yeah, Frankenstein's monster, a really lucky Taylor. He uproots a tree, and they go into a town, and then she realizes the error of her ways, sort of. She's really working for the Germans, and she basically tells them, no, it's a trap, So she runs forward and gets shot at. Here's a Superman Twinkies commercial. These cupcakes and Twinkies, like Hostess cakes commercials, were ever present in the 70s and 80s. This one, Superman is stopping two satellites from colliding with each other. They look like giant AC units from an apartment building or something. Like, I guess they had no reference as to what they're supposed to draw, so they just like took air conditioning units and drew these. I don't know. Anyways, these two are trying to do that. Superman flies down and throws them a bunch of Hostess pies. Usually the villains were the ones that were doing the selling of these pies. And here they're like, oh, the golden sponge cake is delicious. I go for the yummy cream filling. And Superman doesn't, you'd figure here he would say something like, after this, I'm going to get myself some fruit pies. But no, he's like, now that I've terminated that program, I can head back to scoop Lois on the story. Like, I don't care about that. You're trying to sell Twinkies cakes, man. It's like, gosh, like the villains are doing all the heavy lifting. So anyways, yeah, that's a typical ad back then. It's cool because it looks like just the a comic, right? And you'd read through them, and it's Hostess. And you know what, man, it worked. Like the way they used to describe these things, I was like, oh, I could go for like a Hostess cake or a fruit pie or something now, man. So anyways, the monsters do their thing. They're killing fools, approved by the comics code. So nothing gory or bloody, but you could tell what's going on, right? You could fill in the blanks yourself. So anyways, at the end, Vincent Velcro is like, what about Dr. Fred or whoever she was? Shouldn't we bury her? And it's like, what the hell for? And then the vampire's like, but it seemed like, well, like you kind of cared for her. And the human's like, you're off your rocker, Velcro. Now let's move out. And, well, I'm not going to say that word, but, and leave the pig where she belongs. And then he's crying a bit here. So then they go off. Creature Commandos was fun. I wasn't a big fan of doing occurring, like regular occurring characters in these. I just wanted new stories all the time, right? But yeah, they did this. I'm pretty sure Haunted Tank must have made appearances here. GI Robot, that was a thing too. There were a couple iterations of that as well. And I think at one point GI Robot was part of the Creature Commandos. So here's another story. So they have to give you like, just a regular story here. This one has all sorts of historical figures in it. So let's go through the credits actually, because I didn't really do that. All right. Yeah, so Jam DeMatteis, writer and creator, Creature Commandos. Fred Carrillo, artist, and Len Wein, editor. Adrian Roy, colorist. SVD, letters. And going into the second story, the Master Infiltrator. This is Bob Rozakis, writer, and Dan Spiegel, artist. So this thing, it's hosted by Death as well. There's a guy who's stationed within the German lines during World War II, and he's uncovered a plan where they can remotely, like the Germans can remotely take over someone from Germany, take over their body, right? Like their spirit and everything. So he goes back to the States and tells everyone this. He's like, listen, they can do this. And they don't really believe him, but like one scientist does, and he's like, you know what, let's recreate this. And I think it's F.D.R. The president says, yes, let's go ahead and make this thing, So they're hard at work doing this. Meanwhile, the Germans are ready to take over someone's brain. And they do. And so it's the Russian leader. And so the American infiltrates and fights him and then exercises the spirit out of him. And then he's like, oh, thank you. And then they're going to take over Russia, but now they're not going to. So he's foiled. This is less horror and more just fantasy, right? But like it has a war theme. So chapter 2, the English Channel, and they're going after England here. And so that gets foiled as well. And then England is safe. So then they try to take over the United States. And I'm just going through all this because I feel like this was a smaller story that didn't need to be 3 parts and take up 2/3 of this comic, right? So they try to take over F.D.R. there. But the good guy, he's now dead, but his spirit is now fighting the German. And so they fight in the air and all that stuff. And, he then kills that guy and then enters the German's body in Germany. And then that's that. I thought this comic could have done with more Creature Commandos. I don't know why that story was so short. Or even do 2 Creature Commando stories or something like that. I had said in the beginning I like the different anthology stories, but this one ran way too long. I thought you knew what's gonna happen. And here's a letters page and more trashy ads. And there's a lot of like these model kit ads. So here's more model kit ads and stuff. AFX Aurora. And there you have it, the second appearance of the Creature Commandos from Weird War Tales number 97. Take care.